All right, so I'm going to read some pages of the chapter 6 of The Hobbit. Chapter 6 is out of the frying pan into the fire. Um, when we're doing the illustrations in our notebook, it won't be every single page because we'll have 300 pages of illustrations. We don't want that. So every couple of pages, we'll stop and we'll illustrate what's happened so far, and we'll do it in our notebooks. And Um, you can use colors. I won't at first. Maybe when we're continuing on, I'll do colors, um, but we won't for first. So I'm going to have my notebook, and I will. You will do it like I do it, and we'll write down which pages we're illustrating, and then we'll do it in there. Chapter 6 is a very long chapter. It starts on page 91 and goes until page 111. So it takes a while. Um, I remember right, some pretty cool stuff happens on this. So, um, oh yeah, this is really cool chapter. Okay, so I will read, and then you will just do your notes like I am. Hopefully, next time we meet, we won't have such a big drop in internet. So, all right. So, The Hobbit, chapter 6. So he just escaped the Goblin Gate. He found Bilbo. He found Gollum's ring. Didn't know what it was, and as he was trying to sneak out of the cave, it quite literally accidentally slips on his finger and he becomes invisible. And that's what I hope you call it. He becomes invisible, and the goblins can no longer see him, but they see his shadow and they know there's someone there. And he tries to get out, but because hobbits like to eat, he's got a big belly and it gets stuck and he sucks it in really and he goes through and his buttons come flying off. And in the movie, that's a really dramatic part of the movie. And I'll actually have you watch that. So now he escaped the goblins. They actually come out and chase him, but it says that um, goblins don't like the sun. It makes their legs wobble and their heads giddy. So they just ran back in their little goblin cave. So the sun actually hurts them. So they're kind of like vampires almost. So they go back in. So right now they're safe because they're outside in the sun. But just like vampires, when the sun goes down, I bet that's when the goblins come out and they do their evil deeds in the world. Okay, so we're on page 91, out of the frying pan into the fire. That is an idiom meaning you got out of the frying pan. So literally, like you're imagine you're on a frying pan where bacon is cooked, and you're in a fire, you're on a fire like a camp, and you're in the frying pan, and you're getting cooked, and you jump out of the fire. Well, you probably can't jump out very far, and so you actually land in the fire. So what that means is you're out of the frying pan, which is trouble, and you're into the fire, which is more trouble. So you get yourself in more trouble. That's what out of the frying pan into the fire means. You leave one little bit of trouble for bigger trouble. All right, page 91. Bilbo had escaped the goblins, but he did not know where he was. He had lost hood, cloak, food, pony, his buttons, and his friends. He wandered on and on until the sun began to sink westward, behind the mountains. Their shadows fell across Bilbo's path, and he looked back. Then he looked forward, and he could see before him only ridges and slopes falling forward, the lowlands and plains glimpsed occasionally between the trees. Good heavens, he exclaimed. I seem to have got right on the other side of the misty mountains, right to the edge of the land beyond. Where and oh, where can Gandalf and the dwarves have got to? I only hope to goodness they are not still back there in the power of the goblins. He still wandered on, out of the high valley, over its edge, and down the slopes beyond. But all the while, a very uncomfortable thought was growing inside of him. He wondered whether or not he wondered whether he not now that he had the magic ring to go back into the horrible, horrible tunnels and look for his friends. He had just made up his mind that it was his duty, that he must turn back, and very miserable he felt about it when he heard voices. He stopped and listened. It did not sound like goblins, so he crept forward carefully. He was on a stony path, winding downward with a rocky wall on the left hand. On the other side, the ground sloped away, and there were dells below the level of the path, overhung with bushes and low trees. In one of these dells, under the bushes, people were talking. Wonder who it is. Let's see. He crept still nearer, and suddenly he saw peering between two big boulders a head with a red hood on it. It was Balin doing lookout. He could have clapped and shouted for joy, but he did not. He still had the ring on. That means he's invisible, for fear of meeting something unexpected and unpleasant. And he saw that Balin was looking straight at him without noticing him. I will give them all a surprise, he thought, as he crawled into the bushes at the edge of the dell. Gandalf was arguing with the dwarves. They were discussing all that had happened to them in the tunnels and wondering and debating what they were to do now. The dwarves were grumbling, and Gandalf was saying that they could not possibly go on with their journey, leaving Mr. Baggins in the hands of the goblins, without trying to find out if he was alive or dead, and without trying to rescue him. After all, he is my friend, said the wizard, and not a bad little chap. I feel responsible for him. I wish to goodness you had not lost him. The dwarves wanted to know why he had ever been brought at all, why he could not stick to his friends and come along with them, and why the wizard had not chosen someone with more sense. He has been more trouble than used to us so far, said one. If we have to go back now into those abominable tunnels to look for him, then drat him, I say. Gandalf answered angrily, I brought him, and I don't bring things that are of no use. Either you help me look for him, or I go and leave you here to get out of the mess as best you can yourselves. If we can only find him again, you will thank me before all is over. Whatever did you want to go and drop him for, Dory? You would have dropped him, said Dory, if a goblin had suddenly grabbed your legs from behind in the dark, tripped up your feet, and kicked you in the back. Then why didn't you pick him up again? Good heavens! Can you ask? Goblins fighting and biting in the dark, everybody falling over bodies and hitting one another. You nearly chopped off my head with Glamdring, and Thorn was stabbing here and there and everywhere with Ocrist. All of a sudden, you gave one of your blinding flashes, and we saw the goblins running back yelping. You shouted, follow me, everybody, and everybody ought to have followed. We thought everybody had. There was no time to count, as you quite know well, till we had dashed through the gate guards, out of the lower door, and helter-skelter down here. And here we are, without the burglar, confiscate him. And here's the burglar, said Bilbo, stepping down into the middle of them and slipping off the ring. So, and into the right. Pop the ring. Come on. Or please trying to build up the ring back a great deal with the list. About that he was inspired and all sorts of but everyone so pleased with their praise that he just chuckled inside and said nothing whatsoever. And when they asked him how he did it, he said, oh, just crept along, carefully and quietly. All right, so I think this is a good spot to do our first illustrations. So I'm going to show you how I want to see your notebook. Okay. So you should have your notebook set up like this. This is my first page that I am illustrating in my visual notebook in the reading section. So if you've already done some illustrations, you need to make sure that we're starting chapter 6 here. And we're doing, this will be pages 91 through 93. So we're illustrating the big thing that happened on this page. What we're still going to do is we're still going to write the who, what, where, and the when, but we're going to be really brief about it because we're going to be illustrating down here. So your book needs to be like this. We're going to put the who, where, when in the left corner, the what we're journaling in the label of the what we're journaling in the right corner, and then down here is where we're going to do our illustrations. It's going to fill up the vast majority of the page. So the who, we're going to say the dwarves. We're going to say Gandalf. And we're going to say Bilbo, because that was really what was happening. The what was that Bilbo escaped the tunnel and snuck up on the dwarves. So Bilbo snuck up on the dwarves. Okay, the where they're in the woods, and the when it's during the day. Oh, it's becoming the evening because the sun's setting. So we're going to say the evening. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use what we write here, and we're going to illustrate it here. We're also going to use what we saw in the book. So what we saw in the book is that Bilbo is in the beyond the misty mountains. So we're going to draw the mountains on this side, and then we're going to draw like some trees in here. What we're going to draw on this side are some characters talking. And then right around the middle, we're going to draw Bilbo kind of hopping in. Now, what you need to know is I am not an artist, so my illustrations are going to be very bland. Um, I'm going to be drawing stick figures because that's the best I can do. If you are an artist, you can draw more. When we're reading, we're going to just kind of start with the stick figures. And if you want to add in more detail later, you can. Or if you're doing this on your own, you can. But we're going to be very kind of basic with our drawings. Okay. I said we had the mountain over here, and the sun's starting to set. So I'm drawing the sun over here. Okay. Draw some snow on our mountains because usually mountains are kind of capped with snow. Okay. Then over here, I'm going to draw some trees. Maybe over here I'll draw a tree because Bilbo does sneak up on them. Okay. All right. I like to draw little holes in my trees. Okay. Now what's important over here is that it said that Bilbo snuck up on them and he actually got past Balin. So we need to make sure we label what we can. Okay. So I am going to draw a stick figure out here. And I'm going to draw this, label this guy Balin. Okay. Balin is keeping watch. All right. Now, over here, that's the ground. I'm going to draw a really big one because Gandalf is very big. And because he's a wizard, I'm putting a wizard hat on him. Okay. And I'm going to draw his staff because he always has this crazy staff. All right. So that's how I'm going to distinguish that it's Gandalf. So I have Gandalf. We have a few dwarves here. You know, he's kind of talking to some of the dwarves and they're demanding to know where he is. All right. So we're just going to be labeling this group here the dwarves. So we're going to say dwarves. I can't spell today. Dwarves. All right. Now, what happens on these pages is that Bilbo snuck up and he was wearing the ring. So I'm going to draw a picture of, like, I think we need to show that he was wearing the ring and then it comes off. So I'm going to draw an action sequence. So I'm going to draw kind of like an outline of a person like this. So it's very faint, and I'm going to say Bilbo with the ring. Then I'm going to draw another picture right here of like an action sequence of Bilbo jumping out. And we're going to say Bilbo, no ring. Okay. So Bilbo is progressing here. He had the ring on. He slipped past Balin. He had the ring on here. Then he took it off, and boom, he surprises the dwarves and Gandalf. So this illustration here, along with the who, what, where, when that we wrote down, kind of tells us what happened on these pages. That is what we're going to do today. I want you to make sure you get this illustrated, and then that's all you need to do today. We'll read more tomorrow, and then we'll keep illustrating as we go on. Okay. Thank you.